As with English language, mathematical language has a prescribed set of rules to follow in order to make meaning of what is written. Let's take, for example, the sentence, "What's up on the road ahead?" In a famous movie um, from Monty Python, there was a character that would read it with with a comma right there. Now it becomes, "What's up on the road ahead?" Clearly a different meaning. Math is no different. For mathematical language, if we consider this, mathematicians across the world have agreed that mathematical statements like this would be done in a certain order. The idea being that all the brackets would be taken care of first, and then we would take care of all the exponents, and then the division and multiplication, then the addition and subtraction, often referred to as BEDMAS. So in the case of the example given here, we have a subtraction, we have a division, and a multiplication, and an addition. So we would work with the division and multiplication in order that they're given. So these two in order that they're given. So we would work with this term first. Then we would multiply by 2.2, and after that we can remove that from 8.8 and 3.7. Let's take, for example, this question here. Sometimes, in order to show order of operations, brackets are used. And as we can see here, the brackets here indicate that those need to be taken care of first. So what we would do is we would add these numbers up before we would do the exponents. Okay? Normally, the exponents definitely becomes before addition subtraction. However, because the brackets are here, it tells us to take care of the brackets piece first. Sometimes, as you can also see in this example, brackets are used, but they're not used to show order of operations, but rather of groupings of numbers to help us to not get confused when the number is positive or negative. Another example would be a situation that looks like this. In this example, you can see that two types of brackets are being used. In order to help us not to get confused with positive and negatives, this 5/12 being a negative, we can see that round brackets are used. And because the order of operations wishes us to take care of this first part before the second part, the square brackets are used. Okay, we'll just simply remove these, and let's try another example. Here's another example of how square brackets are used with the round brackets to show order of operation. Let's consider these statements here. Each one of these would be handled slightly differently. In the first example, we can see that if we follow the BEDMAS operation, there are brackets in here, but the brackets again are only to distinguish because there's a negative sign. It's negative 1.8. So we would have to take care of the exponent first. So we would take negative 1.8 times negative 1.8. Then we could multiply it by 2.7 and remove that total from 9.1. In the second example, we have square brackets. And so what that tells us to do is to take care of what's inside first. Now, however, inside we find a multiplication question, a statement, and an exponent. We must take care of the exponent first. So negative 1.8 times negative 1.8, and then you multiply it by 2.7. In this case, the square brackets aren't necessary because we would have worked with exponents first, then we would have worked with multiplication before we did the subtraction. In the third example, having the brackets where they are changes the results of the question. So in this case, we have brackets here, so we can remove 2.7 from 9.1, and we can multiply that by negative 1.8 after we square it, so we must square it first. In the third example, those brackets there are to distinguish between negative and positive, and in this one we could simply multiply 9.1 times negative 2.7, and then we can multiply that by negative 1.8 after we square 1.8, because again, exponents has to happen before you multiplication or division.